Woo! Welcome to Reboot, Remake, Recycle. I'm with the homie Mike Heresy. What is up, my dude?
This is the only movie program anyone needs to watch ever. Live on Famra, the best darn app in town. Jay, do you want to tell the good people at home about
Absolutely.
Famra?
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you to our sponsor at Famra. Please download the Famra app. It is free. We're chilling in some director's chairs in Famra. It's awesome. I look really comfy. I got some cool yellow overalls. I'm really
Damn,
happy about
that's
putting
sick.
on.
I'm just in the buff. I'm like Valerie. I'm like Valerie. What's her name in the remake of Breathless?
Yes, totally.
Walking around. But you know what? Richard Gere's naked a lot too, and I give him credit for that.
Yeah,
In
he went full frontal. I
Yes.
think twice. Yeah.
And that's a roundabout way of introducing this week's cinematic offering. We're
Yes.
talking Breathless, 1960, instant French New Wave classic. Everybody knew this was going to be a huge hit before it was even released. Director Jean-Luc Godard, barely in his 30s, given the Jean Vigo Prize uh, in order to encourage young auteur filmmakers. Flash forward 22, 23 years, they're remaking it Hollywood style with Richard Gere.
1985, I think it
Was
was.
it 85? Oh shit.
No, 83 actually. I think
Yeah,
83.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
83.
because I was born in 84, so 1 year before my time. I missed it in the theater, but
You
shame.
could what could have been.
Right? Yeah.
He's kind of like you. He loves comic books.
Yeah, he loves the Silver Surfer,
Yeah.
which I think is a great character, and I think it's awesome that they threw it in there. I'm sure we'll talk about that later, but yeah, it has some good like kind of love stuff in Silver Surfer. He has his one true love. He wants to get back and save, so he's a servant to Galactus. But yeah, very cool. I was a really unexpected reference to see in that remake. But yeah, man, let's go back to the OG 1960.
Yeah.
That is
Breath
thank you for picking these movies, man. Breathless was really great, man. I've been thinking about this movie all day. I really wish I could have had a little more time to watch it one more time before this show. After like studying up on it and stuff, and I just really appreciate this film, man. It was a great pick. Thank you.
I, I mean, every nice thing that's ever been said about this movie is 100% deserved.
Yeah,
It is so important to filmic history, the way it shaped language and form and ushered in a new wave of what is actually cool.
hmm
Um, on top of that, I mean, it just, even though this movie is over 60 years old and it still feels fucking fresh.
and it's a tight 90 minutes,
Yeah.
unlike
Very,
modern movies that are always like 2.5 hours now for no reason.
and it was originally much longer, and Godard thought, oh my god, this movie is just dragging ass, and that's where he got the idea of just cutting snippets in the middle of shots, and that's how you get the jump cut technique.
Right? Yeah,
That
it's so
that
funny
that was
how
such a
it's so funny how he was like pressed to make that tight 90 minutes, and he's like, well, we got to cut stuff, and he didn't want to cut any of the dialogue, so cut some of the pointless action scenes from getting point A to B, and there you have your jump cuts. It's like good enough. Cut out the
yeah,
action, even the shooting, in the beginning when he shoots the cop, that is all cut. You don't see any of the action. But you see plenty of the bedroom scene where they're just talking about bullshit for like half an hour in
I
the
fucking
bedroom.
love that, and
Yeah,
that's like,
yeah.
this is like, it's, Godard still does shit like this. I don't know if you've seen any of his recent films. He in the 70s he got very into making these politically motivated essay films. In the 80s he kind of went back to like a more classical style filmmaking, and now um, he makes these kind of very aggressive hybrid offerings, and it's just a testament to this guy. He's in his fucking 90s and he is still more punk than the young filmmakers making films today.
Yeah, didn't he?
um
I guess he came up with a film a couple years ago, and I think he started using like some different type of cameras as well. He's still experimenting, which is fantastic. And I really would love to see that new stuff he does.
He made a film that he made a 3D movie that I was
Mhm.
lucky enough to see in theaters.
Yeah.
Goodbye Language, and it is the single craziest, most innovative use of 3D technology I've
Wow.
ever seen. It was crazy. And one of the gnarliest things is, to make a 3D picture, you need a stereoscopic image. So two lenses right next to each other.
Mhm.
And what Godard does is he's filming a a dialogue scene between two people. They're standing next to each other, and one person starts to walk away, and one of the lenses turns and starts following that person. So when you're watching this movie, your eyes start going two different directions. It's wild.
I was going to say, I was kind of hoping he would, have them talking to the camera and have their faces kind of blends the two shots. So it's like 3D, but like two people as
Hmm.
one person. I think that'd be kind
Hmm.
of neat to see.
Yeah, no,
Gore
I
Vidal,
mean,
thank you for showing up to the chat, man.
hey,
He says,
Gorbachev.
I saw a Breathless remake when it premiered on HBO at the time. It was a surprise to see the Silver Surfer in the film. Who else reads an issue to his French lover in bed? Richard Gere does. And then Jean Seberg was sexy, especially when she was quoting Faulkner.
Oh
Amen to
yeah,
that. Oh man, we got to talk about her for sure later on.
yes,
That's a whole
absolutely.
entire topic. Uh,
Uh,
My Life to Live, Breathless, and Contempt are my favorite Godard films. Very
those are
good.
all great ones. Really wonderful. I'm a sucker for personally for Pierre LeFou and Band of Outsiders, but My Life to Live is amazing. Breathless is like we keep saying over and over again, or at least I keep saying over and over again, a titan of cinema. I mean, I guess a little bit of context.
Yeah.
1959 to 1960 are extremely important years cinematically. This is the birth of the French New Wave. You could argue that it starts in 59 with Francois Truffaut's The 400 Blows.
Right.
Um,
I mean,
and
would you say even like maybe this is because the end of World War II?
well,
And
certainly that's part of it. But I mean, the French. So for the uninitiated, and I'm sorry if this is
no,
retrodden
please.
territory
No.
for a lot of people. The French New Wave is uh, a loose knit collection of filmmakers coming out of France around this time, early 60s. A lot of them come from a critical background. A lot of them wrote for a magazine called Cahiers du Cinema under the tutelage of Andre Bazin, a film critic and theorist of high regard. Um, and they, in their filmmaking practices, are an extension of their film criticism, and it's in response a lot to what they perceived as the stuffiness of the French film industry at the time.
Mhm.
They really hated the bloat of the French filmmaking establishment. They wanted to take lightweight cameras to the streets and film their reality. They felt like the French cinema had become disengaged with the everyday, and this is where there's weird kind of fissures in the collective. If you examine anything long enough,
Mhm.
the ties that bind certain elements start to break apart. I mean, you can see like Godard. There's no way to misrecognize Godard as anything besides a postmodern artist. He very much wants you to be aware that you're watching a movie every step of the way.
Mhm.
Someone like Truffaut, he's a little bit more classical.
Yeah.
Someone like Claude Chabrol, very much indebted to Hitchcock and that filmic tradition. And then you get even further away. You have people that are French New Wave adjacent, who are kind of more of a collection called like the left bank filmmakers. People like Agnes Varda and Alain Resnais. You also have like Jean Eustace and Eric Romer, who are a little bit more literary in their cinematic aspirations. But I mean, Godard is, for my money's worth, is the big swinging dick of the French New Wave.
Yeah, for sure.
He wouldn't have been able to make this picture. He had done like a couple of small, short films here and there, but he
Mhm.
wouldn't have made this picture without Truffaut essentially cashing in on Truffaut's name. Truffaut wrote a treatment for Breathless
Right.
that was originally rooted in fact. A guy killed a cop and it hid out for a few days and eventually was captured. And that was that slice of life story was the point of origin
Yeah.
for Breathless. Now, Godard took that initial one-page treatment and essentially threw it out the window, and every single day would write the day's dialogue and scenario before they started filming.
Yeah. Hmm.
And to that effect, it still flows together very, very naturally. And I was glad that you brought up that one scene in the bedroom, because it's basically a third of the fucking movie, and I love it because the movie's just go, 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 and then it just grinds to a halt for them to hang out for 30 fucking minutes.
I love how I mean on the Criterion app I was watching the supplemental material and the interviews and stuff like that on there, and yeah, they were saying how it's real tight in that bedroom, man. You know, to get the crew in there, they're really grateful they didn't have to have lights, you know, set up. It just, you know, natural lighting, because they wouldn't have fit in there. And
Roel Coutard was the cinematographer on this picture, and he was a wartime photographer. Godard chose him for that reason. He wanted someone that had a documentary experience.
Yeah.
And there wasn't a film stock that existed that was high speed enough to photograph in that room. And before they would shoot, Coutard would take still photography film and glue it together to create the rolls of film that they could actually shoot on.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting how for their night shots they'd had to use like camera film, the special kind, but it happened to fit inside the camera that they were using. Just, you know, just coincidentally enough, if it was been on a different camera, it wouldn't have worked. So that was pretty interesting. It's really neat. It looks great at night too. There's so many great shots in this film. One of them that stands out in my mind is I love how it was just, you know, a little simple transition, but you know, he's standing outside of his car. It's nighttime, and the lights go on in the city, and they all go on. And I guess apparently they had to call the city ahead of time, the electric company, and said, yeah, you know, we're gonna put it on in like 10 seconds. And it's like, all right, well, I'll start filming, and then, you know, it goes on, and it looked great. It was so fantastic. I'm really surprised they actually even called them. I was thinking that maybe someone knew the time that the lights go on every day, and so they would go in there and shoot at that time. But apparently, they had some little better coordination to make that happen.
Yeah, I mean, it really does feel like a love letter to the city of Paris. I mean, they just really shoot the hell out of that town, and just all the little details, the coffee shops, the boulevards, like the lights coming on at that moment just feel magical, you know?
Yeah. I love how I mean, they had to film, you know, it in a wheelchair with a crate on top for their dolly. You know, no tracks. You can got a lot of movements you can do in a wheelchair. You know, in the streets, of course, people would want to look at the camera, so they hid it inside like a makeshift
It's a mail carrier.
like a mail carrier food cart kind of thing, a contraption. They have a little circle for the lens to film, and then I guess the guy holding the camera inside, his head was sticking out, so they put a box on top.
Yeah.
It's just so funny. It's just so creative and amazing, and you can see how probably how freeing it was to make this, you know, to instead of being stuck in the studio and all these sets and stuff, you have the whole entire city, which they didn't ask permission or permits or anything. They're just like, let's just go. And just
no, I mean, there's a
camera. Yeah,
there's a parade for Charles de Gaulle in the middle of the fucking movie, which is great.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, and you know, it's also crazy to think about these movies from this era, particularly in, you know, in Europe at this time. I mean, there wasn't sync sound, so everyone had to go into a studio afterwards, and like, you know, again, it's like they're making up the dialogue on the spot, so everyone has to kind of like, you know, remember what they said, you know, and try to, you know, hit it the exact same way.
Yeah, it's funny because I guess Godard would, like, you know, say the lines, and then they would repeat the lines, and I guess, you know, the handheld camera was so noisy that they had to, you know, overdub it. And I think they did a great job at overdubbing. Like you can't even really tell too much, you know, unless you pay attention and see the mouse not syncing up. But like the acting in the voiceovers is so great.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like something where you have like the spaghetti westerns where everyone's speaking a different language. You have an international cast, and so you kind of tell that like they're not saying what they're actually saying, or something like a Fellini movie where he didn't have any dialogue written yet, so he just had them say numbers, and he would write the script before they would go into dub. Like, I mean, like, these people had actual words that they were syncing up, you know. And I think that's like this kind of French anal attention to detail. Also, another funny detail about this movie, you know, it's a big car movie, a lot of fucking cars in this, and Godard was so meticulous about making sure that the car sounds that you heard were coming from the right cars. So
That's
if it's
fantastic.
a Ford, they're recording a Ford engine.
Wow.
If it's a Chrysler, it's a Chrysler, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, that's some great attention to detail. Hi, Leah. Comic Bro, thanks for joining. Said Silver Surfer 1 in the. I'm not sure if issue 1 was in the movie, and the Richard Gere one. I think it was a later issue. It could have been 1 though. I'm not sure. I have to take a second look. And then great bathroom scene.
Yeah,
yeah.
you get an eye full of gear in that one.
You certainly do. Yeah.
But we should also talk about the performers in the 60s, in the 60 Breathless. I mean, you could not ask for better leads than Jean-Paul Belmondo and Gene Seberg.
Gene Seberg is so fantastic. You know, I'm just entranced by her presence. Great, like pixie look. Short haircut.
Every girl got that haircut as soon as this movie came out.
Yeah. Even I was thinking like Fergie or whatever her name is, Twiggy.
Oh, yep. Yeah, Twiggy for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, very, very, very cool. Yeah, her she's so interesting as a person. I was watching one of the interviews in the Criterion, supplementary
Tragic
material.
life.
Yeah, tragic life. But this one interview this woman was giving her was just like, God, these questions this woman was asking. I was surprised, like, Gene didn't just like backhand her or get snippy at her, because there was really inappropriate questions, and she's like, this reporter or whoever was just really asking about like her divorce and all this stuff when she was trying to avoid that stuff and just getting really personal.
But there's all this weird stuff where like the United States government was kind of like gunning for Gene Seberg's life, because it's not like Jane Fonda where she was like movie royalty. You know, she wasn't, you know,
she
young
Mr.
Link.
Yeah, new.
Yeah,
felt like they can just do whatever to her.
Yeah, she like didn't she have a miscarriage? She miscarried a child with a Black Panther, and she got into all sorts of.
I think I'm not sure if the miscarriage was from a Black Panther. She did have, I think, 2 affairs with the Black Panthers, and I guess before that, I guess I should say that the FBI was after her because she was for Black rights, and I think she even moved some guns and weapons for the Black Panthers.
That's fucking tight.
Yeah, she had 2 affairs with, I guess, 2 Black Panther members. I believe the pregnancy was from her husband that she miscarried, and then I think later on she did have a baby, but it died like 5 days later, and or something like that. I think after this whole entire FBI investigation thing was over with, after they put her through the ringer, and she was never the same after that. And she apparently attempted suicide at the birthday of her daughter every year. Tried it multiple times, and eventually was successful. I mean, but then again, you know, they found her wrapped in a blanket in the backseat of a car with a bunch of like pills and stuff. But it's like, you're messing with the FBI, and the FBI are assholes. And how many times have they assassinated people? Like Americans, you know, much less foreigners.
Yeah. What's the old joke about the guy, Gary, what's his name, the journalist that broke the story about the Iran Contras and the use of cocaine to fund the Sandinistas, shooting himself twice in the back of the head.
Yeah.
What a suicide.
Gore Vidal says, between grief and nothing, I will take grief. Quoted by Seberg from Faulkner's Wild Palms. Faulkner was popular in France at the time. Yeah, a lot of was happening at the time. Like existentialism was finally becoming a thing with philosophy. And then also, I think there was 2 or 3 quotes, I believe, from Dashiell Hammett books. So that was really cool.
There's on the subject of existentialism, when I was at university, I took a course in existentialism in film and literature, taught by a character named Hubert Dreyfus, who was the inspiration for the professor character in Futurama. And he had a lot to say about Breathless in terms of how the 2 of them are 2 sides of the same coin, as far as existentialism is concerned.
Mhm.
Belmondo kind of embraces the absurdity of existence and is he whatever he does he flings himself into, and like you can kind of see like physically, I mean he's like bursting out of the frame. He's always running and jumping and like shadow boxing at one point, but like
Mhm.
he'll steal a car, he'll shoot a cop, he'll fall in love with this woman he doesn't fucking know, but like whatever is it right in front of him, he's super fucking committed to.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And she, on the other hand, is absolutely crushed by existence. And Dreyfus was really funny. He would often refer to her as an alien because of like the androgynous way in which she dresses and cuts her hair, but like she still uses her feminine sexual wiles to like get what she wants. But like she's in university, but you never see her study. And she says she wants to be independent, but she still sleeps with her boss. And there's all these things where like she says she loves him, but then she rats him out to the cops. There's all these things that she does and says that cancel each other out. She's kind of a person of no qualities, and it's very
Sure.
interesting.
But it's also like I like how right before the ratting out part, I think she even brought up that, oh, how do you feel about people that are snitching or something like that? It's like, oh, it's like I don't think anything of it. It's like normal. It's
Hmm.
like, murderers are gonna murder, snitches are gonna snitch. It's just life. It's just how it is. Uh, and so I thought that was pretty appropriate when it came to her personality. But also I feel like, he is a kind of a wannabe gangster worshiping Humphrey Bogart. And he's trying to be, I guess I'm not sure if he's trying to be like, live that gangster life or whatever, or be like a bad boy on purpose. Maybe I think he probably is, but as dangerous this persona he puts up front, I feel like she's more dangerous, and she's putting up more of a quiet kind of front, and she's kind of more dangerous on the inside. But yeah,
Yeah,
pretty cool.
I mean, there's a litany of examples like this, but another thing to consider is where Jean Seberg is coming from at this point in her career. She did two films by Otto Preminger. She was Joan of Arc, and then she was
Mhm.
Bonjour Tristesse, and she was fucking tortured
Yeah, during
by
Joan
this
of Arc.
director.
Yeah.
Hated it. Hated this experience whatsoever.
Mhm.
Like totally.
Yeah, and then the criticism after that, from Joan of Arc, was brutal, apparently. So that's a damn shame. Yeah, Gore Vidal, Jean-Paul Sartre, huge admirer, and also Faulkner for sure. What an interesting time. 19, I think like my favorite years for music is like late '60s, early '70s,
Hmm.
across all genres. Rock and jazz and soul and funk and all this stuff, and blues, and it's just a magical time. But like that early '60s is something to be appreciated as well. You have really kind of like the birth of garage rock music, which is the first wave of punk music.
Hmm.
People think punk started in the '80s. No, it
You've
started
seen
in the early '60s.
That Jeffrey Lewis video where he breaks
No.
down there's a great video where Jeffrey Lewis breaks down American punk to the great anthology of American folk music. He says is like the first instance of the points of origin sonically, stylistically for punk music. And then through the early Velvet Underground recordings and David Peel and the Lower East Side, and
Hmm. Hmm.
up and through the Fugs, Holy
Yeah.
Modal Rounders,
Hmm.
and then up through Richard Hell and Television, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, I think the early garage stuff. I mean, there's like what, like the Haunted, and like I guess that's more like '63. But even like modern sounding punk music, I would say like modern, like as in like '80s type of bands, like their sound, I think was totally copied off of like bands that existed in the like late '60s, early '70s that sounded like that, like Crime. They're from San
Hmm.
Francisco. Um, that one song, like I think it's called "Feel the Beat." That's like you would think it's from like the '80s or like after Black Flag, and it's just
Hmm.
like heavy as hell. And you can totally tell like that's where like even '90s bands like Nirvana and stuff got their inspiration from, was like these '80s punk bands and also '60s garage rock, and which the first wave of punk, and just stole riffs.
Hmm.
But that's another story. But I guess back to the films. Um,
I do
Gore
want to
Vidal.
say one. I
Go ahead.
want to say one more thing about the 60 Breathless.
Yeah.
This film inspired so many filmmakers in the wake of it. There's this interesting phenomenon that happens where the 1950s was the collapse of the American studio system, and a lot of the studios stay in business by turning to foreign distribution, and they poured over all of these European films. Rome, Open City, the Roberto Rossellini film is like one of the first examples of this. And part of the marketing of these European films are they're more artistic or sophisticated than American films,
Mhm.
which is true.
Yeah.
But what this does is it creates a kind of a feedback loop where this is the expectation, and the European filmmakers and to some extent the Japanese filmmakers at the time, like
Mhm.
Kurosawa as
Yeah.
well, are getting increasingly experimental in their cinematic offerings. And the movies during this time, these films in particular, become this kind of keeping up with the Joneses object of conspicuous consumption, where you're putting on a suit and a tie, and you're going to the movies, and there's these pamphlets in the movie theater lobbies that have literature that explain
Like a
the
program.
movie
Yeah, it's like a
to
program.
you.
Yeah.
And you'll see your neighbor and be like, oh, hello, Bob, I saw last year at Marienbad or Rashomon last night, and I understood it, did you? And it's crazy because you think about, you compare that to the kind of watered down studio fare we get today, and
Mhm.
everything's being spoon fed to you. I mean, I
Yeah.
guess you have literature explaining Rashomon to you back then, but that's neither here nor there. But I mean, these were like big fucking hits. I mean, people were going to see Persona, this really dense Ingmar Bergman picture, like it was a fucking Marvel movie. And but the the thing is, the way that things get chewed up and digested, these European films start inspiring American filmmakers. Dennis Hopper, when he's doing Easy Rider
Uh-huh.
and the last movie, he's very much inspired by these kinds of pictures. And even Arthur Penn, when he's doing Bonnie and Clyde in '68. There's a shot towards the end where before Bonnie and Clyde, meet their untimely deaths. Spoiler alert.
Mhm.
Um, there's a shot where Warren Beatty is wearing sunglasses with only one lens in them, and they screened the movie for Jack Warner at the time, and Warren says, "Wait, what? You got to go back and reshoot that. He's only got one sunglass lens in." And Arthur Penn goes, "No, no, no. It's an homage to Breathless."
Breathless. Yeah. Yeah.
And Jack Warner looks at Arthur Penn and goes, "What the fuck's an
It's an
homage?"
homage. Yeah. I think even Bonnie and Clyde has a different connection to Breathless, where I feel like was it Godard, or was it Gene that was supposed to be a part of that, but they couldn't at the time.
I think Godard. They originally approached Godard to
Okay,
direct it.
that's what I thought. Yeah, I remember there was a different connect. Yeah, very cool.
That's a great picture too, though. Oh my god.
It's so funny because that brings up how I started the whole show. I guess was like the end of World War II kind of stopped the regulation. Where I guess the French filmmakers wanted to preserve French film, and but then like after the war was over, you have a lot of American films start showing in Paris, and then you have the youth that are brought up with these like Humphrey Bogart movies and things like that, and they're inspired by that. So I mean, both Godard said he was inspired by those as well, but it's also a critique on on that stuff as well. And then it kind of circles back around, how it's like French is inspiring American films, and it's just like a big giant
I
circle
mean,
or spirals. Yeah,
culture and civilization is just one big Ouroboros. Like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
high art and low art just continually cannibalizing each other, and
I love the mix of highbrow art and like lowbrow humor or lowbrow stuff. It's just like the best content of best of both worlds. Like I think I brought up long ago, maybe when we first started the show. I wanted to make like a magazine called Bauhaus Auteur, and it's just like kind of like a meme book, but it's presented as like a high, critique, high brow material. But when you open it up, it's like it still looks like that, but it's still like it's just like toilet humor and like cum jokes. But it's like but more on top of that, I want to have like other like of course other reviews and short stories and real essays and things like that, real stuff in there as well. But that's just like I think that's kind of like the dude that helped out in Mad Magazine or helped create Mad Magazine when he
Kurtzman.
was Kurtzman. Thank you, Harvey Kurtzman. When he made Trump Magazine for Playboy, that was his goal, was to make like a high end, lowbrow comedy magazine, and like that was so inspirational for me, as well as like this movie, Breathless, because like these techniques that he used, it's like anyone, especially nowadays, any film like student should be really inspired by like what you can do with what you have. And even if like impromptu and on the fly kind of stuff, it's just what's
I
going to
mean, I
stop you? Nothing
you
should
know
stop you from doing
I'm
that.
I'm a testament to this. A few years ago, I made a film that was shot entirely on cell phones in the streets
Wow.
with no permits, and we dubbed everything after the fact. And
Wow.
so I mean, again, I'm just ripping off Godard, and I'm part of the
Fantastic.
problem.
Gorvidal says Woody Allen films enjoy poking fun at the over intellectualizing of Bergman, Godard, and other European filmmakers while paying homage to them at the same time. That's true.
Yeah,
Black and white filmmaking by the Europeans was an experience in itself. While U.S. films were moving away from black and white, Europe was embracing it, which I love, and I'm really glad to see kind of that return in more recent years of people not being afraid to make black and white films. I would like to see more of those.
yeah. I mean, any it just depends on the project. What is the form that best suits it?
I'm surprised there's not like more alternate versions of films where it's like there's always a black and white version of the film as
Yeah,
the
but
color.
I'm
It's not
I'm not
necessary, but
I'm not because there's a thing about you light a black and white film differently than you would light a
mm,
color film.
yeah,
You know, that's like Guillermo del Toro is pushing this new black and white version of Nightmare Alley, and I kind of can't understand why, because watching that film, it's like the color is so important to this
interesting.
film.
I was going to say Nightmare Alley is finally on Hulu and Netflix, I believe, or
Oh
HBO.
shit!
It's on HBO Max. It just came out like yesterday,
Oh wow,
so we can
rad.
totally do it next week if you want to.
Okay, cool. Yeah, let's do that. Let's lock in Nightmare Alley for the next one. Yeah, yeah.
Cool.
Um, I wonder if there's anything else we should. Oh, I have one more. Well, this isn't a Breathless related
Mhm.
thing, but it's a Bonnie and Clyde related story where I
Nice.
guess Warner was chewing out Warren Beatty at the Warner Brothers lot
Mhm.
over something. I mean, it must have been around that era where he was, just the big man on campus,
Yeah.
but Warner was trying to cut him down to size, and he points out to the WB water tower out the window, and he goes, "Take a look at that water tower. Whose name do you see on there?" And Warren Beatty goes, "I just see my initials."
That's fantastic. That's really
Uh,
good.
Bridging the gap. Should we talk about 1983?
Yeah, yeah. God, I almost don't want to move away from the 1961 because
I know.
it's so good and there's so much to unpack there. And I think we did unpack most of it, but we can always go back to it. But yeah,
Mhm.
sure. Yeah, 83. Yeah, it's so funny. I feel like Richard Gere is. I'm not sure how the director maybe saw the original and was like, he's impulsive. He's crazy, he's dangerous. Just be like that. And then Richard Gere just kind of goes off the wall. He's kind of like, yeah, like he has ADHD or like, he
Yeah,
might
it's
be on the
weird. These
spectrum a
weird
little bit.
things. He kind of has like this primate quality where like the way he moves,
Oh,
he's
he said
like
he did a lot of ape imitation and
yeah,
stuff. Like at least
yeah,
like 4 times he did like monkey sounds. At least 4 times throughout the movie. Yeah.
there's something about this movie. I've seen the 1960 Breathless
Mhm.
a million trillion fucking times over the years, and I've probably watched the Richard Gere Breathless 2 or 3 times, and every time I think maybe I'm gonna like it this time. Every time I watch it, I just think, oh god, this is hard. This is pretty hard, man. This is hard to get through.
I think the woman that played there was pretty good. I think she was interesting. She kept my eye on her. Her acting was okay.
Valerie
Was okay.
Kaprisky.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
I think
No,
there's
she's fine. Look, I mean,
it's kind
she's
of interesting that she was French and he's the American. It's kind of flipped.
she has his name.
Yeah, yeah.
They
So,
give
so
her because he's Michelle Picard in the original, and she's Monica Picard.
yeah, so it's all flipped, which is interesting. And it's funny how Richard Gere is all about going to Mexico. Meanwhile, in the 1961, it's like, no, Mexico sucks. We're not going to Mexico. Govert House as an officer and gentleman made Gere a star. Yeah, but it was in American Gigolo. I was going to say that. Yeah, they established a sex symbol. Breathless Remake was
Mhm.
really panned and didn't do well in the box office. Yeah, I'm pretty sure American Gigolo came out in what 1980.
80. 80
Yeah,
was
yeah, mhm,
that was his big break, and he had
yeah,
just done Officer and the Gentleman, and then he was he was really, really hot shit
yeah.
when going into Breathless.
Yeah, no doubt, and
And,
you can tell they got him because American Gigolo. Like,
mhm.
even if American Gigolo wasn't a success, I feel like they still would have got him because he played kinda like that role.
You know, even though the movie's not great, I still like Richard Gere, like, he's a compelling screen presence, like, and I respect any actor
Mhm.
who is willing to spend a considerable amount of screen time naked.
Yeah, I mean, he went all in just like his
I wouldn't
character.
show up to work naked, but, like,
He
in American Gigolo and this, and I think I'm sure there's a number of others, like, Richard Gere's, I think that he has a certain bodily commitment to the craft that I find admirable.
he was all in like his character, and, that was definitely admirable. He's all or nothing, and, I think I would blame maybe the writing or the director, for his, performance, but I think he did the best he could.
It's so hard to play the game of, like, what went wrong because you have Jim McBride. I think Jim McBride is directing it. He came onto the scene in the '60s. He had directed David Holzman's Diary, and that was a film starring L.M. Kit Carson, who wrote the script with McBride for Breathless. But they had made this film in the '60s, where Kit Carson plays a filmmaker, and it's done as a mockumentary, but it is very much inspired by the French New Wave and kind of some of the gags that they were pulling at the time. Um, so you can tell that like McBride really likes the material that he's working with, but
Mhm.
it doesn't really seem like he understands why
Right.
he likes it or
Yes.
how to express that affection. Like, and this carries over because he also did um Great Balls of Fire,
Ah, Johnny Lee Lewis,
The
that's
Jerry Lee
funny.
Lewis biopic with Dennis Quaid and
And
Winona
that was a
Ryder.
success when it came out, man. That was
That
a
was,
big
but
success.
it is a pretty poor fucking movie about a fascinating subject matter. If you really want to understand the phenomenon that is Jerry Lee Lewis,
Mhm.
you got to read Nick Tosh's book Hellfire, the biography of Jerry Lee Lewis. It's a great fucking read, and they couldn't adapt that book because it paints such a negative portrait of Jerry Lee
Mm.
that they would not give the rights to use any of the music if they had done Hellfire. So they used for Great Balls of Fire, they used uh Marcia Gay Lewis's his 13-year-old cousin that he married. They used her memoir as and somehow that was okay. And Jerry Lee Lewis still hated the fucking movie.
Right, that's
But
funny.
I saw Jerry Lee Lewis play music live a few years ago,
Oh, wow.
2018, I want to say winter of 2018, and maybe
Was that the year or 2 before
2017.
he died?
No, he's still alive.
Is he still alive?
Oh yeah, dude. This is the crazy thing.
That's
Out of
crazy, yeah. I
you
thought
look
he
at
died.
the photograph of the famous
Mhm.
Sun Records quartet. It's Elvis Presley, Carl Perkins, Johnny Cash, Jerry Lee Lewis. Like,
Wow.
who would have put money on the incestuous speed freak being the one that outlives everyone else?
Yeah,
But
you know
I saw Jerry Lee Lewis live, and I gotta say, like, I understand now why they say rock and roll is the devil's music because this old bent man, they like had to help him onto the stage, and as soon as his fingers touched the keys, he like it was like he like a
possessed.
spirit
Yeah,
entering.
yeah.
Yeah, he kind of like was like speaking in tongues. I mean, I was like, wow,
That's
damn, this is.
fantastic. You know, I saw, Dick Dale twice,
Oh yeah,
before he died, and 3 times technically, and first time I saw him, uh, it was probably like 4 years before he died, and he was fantastic. He just was sharp as attack and shredding, and audience loved him. It was a fantastic show. The next year, I saw him 3 years before he died, and he was really forgetful. He would say the same things over and over again. He would just be telling stories, and then there was a bunch of like dickhead, like boomer audience members that would like yell at him and heckle him, saying, "Play music and stop telling stories." It's like, what are you doing? Like, shut the fuck up. I
That's
was
really
like so
sad.
mad at them. Yeah, and then like the next year, I actually went 2 years later, so like 1 year before he died, for the third time to see him, and like girl I was dating and my buddy, they were all like just super gone on cocaine, and they just like wanted to go out and not sit down and get more cocaine, and so I was like, I wanted to see the show, but I can see it was like a mess too. Like he was worse than the last time I saw him,
That's a
and
bummer.
I think he had his medical bags on him, like like his like colonoscopy bag and stuff, like all kinds of shit on. It was he was a mess.
That's
He
sad.
shouldn't have not been playing. He was
What
pretty
year
much
was
like a
this?
skeleton. I'd have to look up the year he died and do some reverse math, but
I saw him in 2006, I
mm,
think.
but it was pretty good back then.
That was fine. Yeah, yeah. He
Yeah, yeah,
played the hits.
yeah.
But again, you bring tying this back to Breathless
Mhm,
and
mhm.
Jim
Jerry Lee Lewis
McBride,
and
Jerry Lee Lewis. I mean, Jerry Lee Lewis finds his way into Breathless. I mean, it's
Richard
but
Gere is obsessed with Jerry Lee Lewis. That's
also, I
all
gotta
his
say,
character is about.
Richard Gere is supposed to be a criminal in this movie, and I feel like part of like, if you're gonna be like have the audacity to steal people's cars, you want to be kind of inconspicuous. This
Yeah,
guy's wearing this full fucking neon nudie suit, singing and dancing in the street.
still
He's got
in
these
vintage
fucking
cars, like out of nowhere. Just people have these vintage cars still somehow, and he like steals those, and they look beautiful cars,
yeah, yeah,
fantastic.
yeah,
But it's like,
yeah.
oh my god.
Very, very odd. There's Yeah, and like suddenly like the title is explained as being tied to the Jerry Lee Lewis song. And the original in the 60 Breathless, the title is kind of ambiguous. It kind of seems to allude to the pace at which everything has to move in the
Mm.
first act and the third act. Um, but I feel like there's something about translation that doesn't this film points to a lot of important themes existentially, creatively, and ultimately linguistically. There's a lot of debate. Segueing back to the 61 here for a split
Mhm,
second,
mhm.
there's a lot of debate as to what is actually said in the final exchange, because uh, in the first version I saw of this film, it was on an old DVD, and he as he's dying, Jean Paul Belmondo looks up at Gene Seberg and says, "It's disgusting." And you don't know if he's talking about her betrayal or life itself or what. And she says to the policeman, "What is this?" Translated, because she doesn't really speak very good English, or she doesn't speak very good French, and she constantly has to ask people what words mean. She goes, "What does the word disgusting mean?" Or no, she goes, "What did he say?" And the cop says, "He said you're disgusting." And then she looks in the camera and says, "You're disgusting." But then there's another version of this film that where he says, "It's
You
a
make me want to
scumbag"
puke.
or something.
Well,
And she's like, what did he say? She said, "You're a scumbag." And she's like, "What's a scumbag?" And then there's still another version where as he's dying, he says, "It makes me want to puke."
you make me want
And
to puke. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, and then it's like, what does puke mean? So it's like, this movie's been out for 60 years and we still kind of don't know what it says.
Yeah. The one I watched, he said, "You make me want to puke," but I took it more as like a term of endearment, especially when he was making those faces, how they were in the bedroom, and stuff like that. And I think there was no doubt that he was just head over heels in love with her, um,
Mhm.
and I think that was part of the fun little jab of "You make me want to puke." And I feel like she probably understood that, but then again, I'm not sure her motives because she's kind of so mysterious.
Yeah, I mean, there's just this ultimately this breakdown in the inherent unknowability of the other.
Did you
Can you
hear?
can
I guess apparently Godard told her at the end scene that he wanted her to rummage through his pockets after when he was dead, and then walk away, and she refused to. I think they were kind of butting heads towards the end. Like for instance, when she first sold him out and came back to him, she apparently wanted. She disagreed with him. She disagreed with Godard, saying that she should have a calm demeanor after she comes back and tells him how she feels and things like that. And she just was adamant about having her way, that she should be mad and explosive. And apparently, she still looked pretty calm in the film, but I guess there's another person in the Criterion supplementary material. I'm not sure who he was, but apparently a important person. And he said that she, if you look closely, she has these like veins popping out of her forehead and things like that. And of course, the overdub was, she realized after it was done that he was right. It should have been more subdued and not her way. So the overdub is definitely how Godard wanted it originally. But going back to the ending of how he wanted her to rummage through his pockets. That's such a fun kind of interesting ending. It's like, and then how she does the kind of Bogart lip thing, like he was earlier in the film. So I feel like maybe she might be like, I feel like if there was a part two, it would have been about her doing his role as like the wild card. Like she kind of just took that persona on, as like, this is what I'm about now. Is like, forget school. I'm now like the wild man.
Well, what happens is it's off screen. She gives birth to a child that
That's
23
right.
years later grows up to be Richard
Richard
Gere,
Gere.
and the whole cycle continues in Los Angeles. Another thing I think is interesting is in that last scene, if I'm not mistaken, the only thing the censors made them cut in that picture is the cops at one point said, shoot him in the spine. If it doesn't kill him, it'll paralyze him. And they're
Oh
like, you
shit.
can't have that in this movie.
um, we always have to wrap up saying, how would you remake this film, and who would you cast? And actually, I know we're all going to say Nicolas Cage.
Okay, so I can't. Okay, you're telling me I can't say that.
My first thought was maybe what's that guy that was in the second Blade Runner?
Ryan Gosling.
Ryan Gosling. I feel like that'd be like a modern day American version remake. Is like Ryan Gosling. I'm not sure who the female lead would be, but I feel like he would kind of fit that cool persona, trying to be a bad boy, and audiences would like him for it. So
you know what I think? You got to bring back Richard Gere. You do Old Breathless.
Yeah. Oh
He's
my
got like an
God.
oxygen tank, and
Oh,
like
he's living
you
in
bring
Florida.
back Valerie. This is a good idea. This is how you do it. This is how you. This is.
Or is he still in Vegas? He's still in Vegas. Yeah, gambling, rolling dice still. Yeah.
I mean, he could be in a wheelchair because he could have actually gotten paralyzed by those bullets. We don't know if he dies at the end. I mean, as you discovered in the for the stills for slow heavy metal music playing, they shot him getting killed, but
yes,
audiences reacted so negatively to Richard Gere dying, they ended it with a freeze frame instead.
What's up, Gene Paul, Ace Peter, dude? Good to see you, G-Pap. It's been a long time. I hope you're well, man. Yeah, love seeing you, man. Gore Vidal madness. Yes, we're a madman with this casting and future ideas.
Either old Gere, Nicolas Cage, or one of the things from Avatar, the blue thing.
Sure.
Do a whole mocap 3D Breathless, where
God.
a third of it takes place in a fucking locked room. I think it's really solid.
What if Richard Gere was a roadie for Jerry Lee Lewis, or
It's not too late. Richard Gere could play. You could do a Spider-Verse thing where Richard Gere, Dennis Quaid, and maybe Randy Quaid all play different versions of Jerry Lee Lewis.
Wow, yeah, that's intense. I can't wrap my head around that. God, who would you cast as a female lead for a remake?
I mean, there's so many strong contenders. I
love like a pixie haircut one. To be a good homage.
We gotta one up it though. We gotta give her like she's got to be just bald, like cue ball, or like exposed skull.
Yeah, Sinead O'Connor. Yeah.
Charlize Theron in
Yeah,
Mad
there you go.
Max Fury Road.
That's a good call. I think
I
yeah, I
love
think
I love
Shirley's
her. I love Kate Blanchett. I love
yeah, Shirley Theron would be great in that role. You're right. That's a great pick. Great
yeah,
casting.
love Charlize.
You think
Sure.
her and Ryan Gosling would have some chemistry? I don't think so. I don't know. Maybe we have to recast Ryan Gosling for that. Take
Yeah,
him
I
out and
don't
do
know.
something else.
You know, I love an actor I love these days is I can't get enough of this fool is Lakeith Stanfield.
Keith Stanfield. Do you want to share your screen and show who he is?
Oh, he's he's the homie in Uncut Gems.
Oh, okay.
Or he's also in Get Out. He's in Sorry to Bother You.
Oh, how about yeah? I finally finished Uncut Gems shortly after our
Oh,
show.
Night in the City.
It is Night in the City, man.
It
You
is
nailed it.
100% Night in the City.
Yes, it definitely is a Night in the City through and through, and yeah, you can see that ending coming a mile away,
It's
and
so great because it's like why wouldn't he see that coming? Like
yeah, yeah,
there's no other way for that fool to react other than to shoot him right in the face.
yeah. Like I would have never let that guy out, or made your brother-in-law or whatever that guy was to get the gun from that guy before you open the door and let him out. Like yeah,
Yeah,
poor
well,
decision.
did you enjoy that picture though?
I did, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, yeah, yeah.
Do you understand why I say it's a remake of
It
Night in the City?
is. It really is. It is the perfect remake, I think. It is like
It's
a yeah.
better than the De Niro version. Sorry, De Niro.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it is the perfect remake of A Night in the City. I'm trying to think what are we going to do again next week?
Nightmare Alley.
Nightmare Alley is right, and there's just two of them, right?
Yes, there's 1947,
Mhm.
and then there's the one that came out last year.
What do you think? Why do you think Guillermo del Toro decided to do Nightmare Alley?
That's an interesting question. I mean, the original is a classic. I love the original.
Mhm.
I'm a sucker for Carny Noir. In fact, if you watch the when they're in the movie theater, they're in the 83 Breathless, they're watching Gun Crazy, which is kind of it was a kind of a Carny Noir.
Hmm.
But it's based on a William Lindsay Gresham novel, very haunted author writing a very haunted book, and uh there are things I find compelling about the Guillermo del Toro version. Full disclosure, I'm not the biggest fan of all of his pictures, but I think that he did a good job in this one. um uh I'm just really partial to the original.
Okay, cool. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
So stay tuned for that next week. To go back to what you said briefly, you said how there was a film inside a film, and both these Breathless movies, we saw a film inside a film while they're in a movie theater. I was really surprised that in the Godard one that they did not show the film itself of themselves watching themselves, or like because there's so many layers in that movie where I feel like it really would have been like the nice touch to have themselves like on the screen, or not even themselves, but like part of the film that's not them.
Hmm.
And then also in the Richard Gere one, I think it would have been cool to have the original Breathless shown on the screen. That'd have been a fun touch, but whatever. Not
You
quite
got to
missed
write it.
opportunities, but
You got to write a letter to Jim McBride, and we have to fix this in this remake.
the third remake. Fantastic. All right. Well, thank you so much, Mike, for picking these movies, man. I'm so impressed by Breathless. I'm so happy to have watched it, and I love doing this with you. It is my the film education of Lauryn Hill happening to me. So I'm just all here for it, man. It's fantastic. And then next week is it the one you want to do? Do you want to? Is that good for you?
Yeah. Let's do Nightmare Alley next week.
Okay. All right. We're doing Nightmare Alley next week. So those of you guys watching, if you want to see talk about Nightmare Alley, watch it and come chat it up with us. So looking forward to it. Thank you so much, Mike. Thank you to our
Thank you, Jason.
sponsors at FAMRA. Thank you so much, FAMRA. We love you. Please
Fucking
download
love
the
FAMRA.
Please download the FAMRA app. It's like camera, but with an F, and it's free in the iTunes iPhone store. And it's a lot of fun to interact on there. We're in director's chairs on the app.
But we
It's
could be
fun.
anywhere. We could be in
Yeah.
Gay Paris or on a teacup or in a lily pond. There's nothing these graphic artists over at Famra can't do.
Yeah. There's some, and I love the new environments they're creating. I think they're still working on their kind of like karaoke music open mic night kind of stage arena on the app. If you're unaware of the app, it's a lot of 3D environments. You kind of have like an avatar that has kind of a cam footage for your face on top of an avatar digital body, and it's a lot of fun.
You ever notice how these avatars kind of look like the drum-headed woman on the cover of In an Airplane Over the Sea by Neutral Milk Hotel?
Yeah, totally.
I just made this connection just now.
Yeah, you're right. Does your guy do anything when you tap the screen?
No,
No,
my guy's he's oh
there
wait,
he
he
is.
just he
Hey!
woke up. He stretched.
He's flexing those toes. I see.
Yeah.
Toes are very important on the Famra character, in the words of that character and Breathless. All right, well, that's a wrap. Thank you so much, everybody, and we'll see you all next week with Nightmare Alley. See you later.
Later.